At the end of the level was a large bluish-green lake, and there I encountered another mini-boss, some kind of a monster with a long neck and a whale skull, and attacks with a mouth projectile and by charging into you. It also can go underneath the water and rapidly emerge from the different places. It was harder to beat than the boss from the time warp. And then it had a lot of health because it must have taken me 3 minutes to defeat it. It let out a really loud noise when it died, and then it sank back into the water as I left the screen. Back on the board, I went into the nearest level icon I haven't seen yet, which was a white tree. As I guessed, the level was a winter theme recolor from the forest stage. But unlike the regular forest, I didn't feel unnerved starting at this one. I think the music had a lot to do with it. It was gentle, calm song. It almost sounded like romantic. It was quite revelating, and the forest itself looked much less anomalous, covered in snow. As I traveled through the first segment, enjoying the atmosphere for 4 minutes, and then suddenly I realized something. I haven't seen a single creature since I started this level. Where are all the animals? Soon after, I left the screen and then the next segment started. And the second segment I was still in the winter forest, but now the music was gone. I was starting to feel suspicious, but then I reminded myself that there were other empty levels in the game, and this was likely one of those. But then I heard something familiar. It was a 12-second looping music from Unforgiving Cold. Starting up, I could feel my heart sink as I came across this horrible sight. It was a whole group of dead deer creatures covered in snow, juggling from the blackish bluish tone of their skin. They must have been all frozen to death. On closer inspection, there were some missing parts. Now I was frightened, but I still had to keep going. Before exiting the level, I was really hoping to see something really resemble the previous forest animals' living state, and sure enough, I did. It was a creature that looked like a beaked sloth, except this thing had a white fur, and it was more like of a beaked gorilla. It was walking very slowly when I saw it, but I was happy to see at least something was alive. However, it didn't stay that way for long. The pack of raptors who must have been seen and that something else was still alive came rushing in from the right side of the screen. The big gorilla didn't stand a chance, as one of the raptors immediately lunged at it and ripped open its back legs. These winter raptors act far different from their temperate relatives. While the other raptors only attack while hunting the prey or when provoked. The winter raptors seems to have all gone insane. They attack everything in sight, one running back and forth, clawing at nothing. Even the noises may sound different, more like high pitch and rage. As I left this second segment, even I saw two raptors fighting to the death. They're both covered in injuries, and one of the raptors had been blinded in one eye. I took a screenshot, but I didn't stay to see who won the fight. I only had to gone through one more segment before I could go back to the board screen. But in this segment, I was no longer in the winter forest, but instead a very empty, grassy plain with a bright gray moon in the sky. The pleasant music of the winter forest part 1 has returned. Immediately I started to feel dread. This is going to sound crazy, but it's the absolute truth. The game made this level from one of my memories. The memory that I can't recall, but it's hard to explain. After a long stretch of nothing, I reached the lake, and then the moon moved down from the sky and began to hatch like an egg. When it did, a curled up humanoid figure fell into the lake as the moon helped quickly and disintegrated. I heard a splash when it hit the water, and then a moment of silence, and then the screen began to shake, and a new creature emerged from the water. Thus, I was introduced to a monster I called the Moon Beast, and this was the only screenshot I took, and I was focusing on all my concentration on winning the fight, and it was almost difficult fight yet. Stronger than any of the previous bosses, this creature would have been hard to take down with Godzilla and Mothra. It seemed nearly impossible. I suppose I would consider myself fortunate that the best lacked any attacks like Gigan Saw, because it would have never been won this far. I barely had 3 bars of health when I finally killed this abomination. But what happened afterwards is hardly what I could call a reward. You know, I've been trying to keep my promises as opposed to this memory for years, but it seems like as if I have to get it off my chest. But this is a very painful memory for me, but the game already knows about it. And I think you should too. And I should just tell you the important parts because I don't like bringing the experience back into my head unless I have to. You see, back in middle school, I had a girlfriend named Melissa. She suffered from some kind of a mental disorder that caused her to go into episodes or something like that. When she was in episodes, she would stand or sit perfectly straight and still, and her face would instantly lose in any expressions she had before. She would speak very carefully and clearly, without any hint of emotion. When it was over, she would start trembling and sometimes bury her face in her hands and remain silent for several minutes. I can't really convey the feeling it gave me in words, and I won't try it. You had to see this in person to understand. But despite this, she was a very kind person and I care about her dearly. We like to hang out in the field at night and look at the stars, but one night she didn't say anything to me at all. She just stared directly at the moon, trembling. I tried to talk to her, but she suddenly sprung up and ran right into a traffic. I tried to stop her, but it was too late. She got hit by a truck and killed that night. When I looked right in the eyes when the wheels went over her neck, that sight has always haunted me. I knew this game knows, but I knew that the game knows about this because after I defeated the Moon Beast, this happened.